Welcome to the Injection Connection, in-depth discussions with thought leaders and professionals in the polyurethane infrastructure repair industry, hosted by Jim Spiegel, Vice President of Alchemy SpeedTech and board member at the International Concrete Repair Institute.
All right, so welcome to another episode of the Injection Connection with myself, Jim Spiegel, the host with Alchemy SpeedTech. On this episode, we have a couple gentlemen from Helms Polyfoam. We have J.R. Crowell, sorry, J.R. if I mispronounce anything, and we have Morgan Helms. So guys, just want to kind of open it up to you to kick it off here and just tell us a little bit about your company and kind of the history of your company, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Jim. This is JR and Morgan here. Really appreciate y'all having us on. Just kind of the 10,000-foot view of us. We've been in business right at 4 years in the world of chemical grouting and soil stabilization. And primarily when we started 4 years ago was kind of Morgan on his own by himself, and we were probably a 90% residential work and 10% commercial. And now we've kind of flip-flopped that, and we're probably 80% commercial, 20% residential, and we're up to, I think, right at 7 employees now. And so we focus a lot on the expanding resin side with you guys, as well as leak seal, and then heavy soil stabilization work. We are not a traditional foundation repair company, and a lot of folks that do what we do kind of have that in their bag as well, but we are not. We're strictly chemical grouting and just using polyurethane. So we operate out of our home office, which is in the Jackson, Mississippi area, kind of central Mississippi. But we cover the entire state, as well as some of the states that border us. We're starting to venture out a little bit. But everything primarily operations-wise is handled out of this Jackson market. Hopefully, by the end of the year, we'll have a second location. So I'm sure we'll dive into some of that as this moves forward.
Great. Sorry, clicking back and forth there. Okay. So you said that the company is only a few years old. Is that correct? And how many employees did you say you have now?
7 full-time, and then we have a few part-times that we'll grab, especially during the summer. We try to employ some of the local guys that have an interest in what we do throughout those times. But yeah, 7 full-time, and yes, right at 3.5, 4 years, approaching 4 years.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things we obviously talk to a lot of foundation companies, that are looking to get into the business, and obviously I don't want to use this medium for you guys to tell all your secrets on on how you got into the business. But how did you find the first year or so getting into this? And I guess Morgan, that might be more to your side, but
well, where we live, there's a lot of yazoo clay, and just there's a ton of foundation repair companies in town, and my vision was to eliminate the need for foundation repair. And as I looked online, did my research, the expanding foam was new to the area, but it wasn't. I mean, it's we're 10 years behind in Mississippi, so it was new. Nobody was really doing it, so thought that'd be a great fit for me and the area I'm in. So that's kind of how it went, just a solution to a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the clay soils. Is that primarily what you guys are up against?
Yeah,
it's an expanding clay, so deeper down it expands. If you get water to it, it expands. What is it, 200 times? Some crazy number expands. So our goal is to get the water away from the yazoo clay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's a lot of clay in the central part, Jim, and throughout a lot of the state. But as you get closer to the coast, obviously you get some sandy soils. Over by the river, it's a little bit different. But yeah, we right here in our backyard is primarily what we see, and that's what, to Morgan's point, when he first started looking at this company, he was seeing all the issues caused by it, whether it be driveway settling, house settling, roads, sinkholes, infrastructure moving, like lots of different things that were causing just huge problems and lots of downtime for not just us, but everybody else that works in this area. If you've got some issues in a road caused by movement, the road has to be shut down. Well, that's a huge inconvenience for everybody. So, is there a way that we can solve some of those problems without so much downtime, which is that's kind of where he took it and ran with it.
Right. Right. So I know you guys work with Andy quite a bit, and
Oh yeah, love Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy's our Poly Badger. That's how the machine got the name. But no, Andy's a great guy. But can you talk to how important? And I want to preface this by we say almost in every episode that this isn't a sales pitch for our product line or offering at all, but I do think it's it's nice to have you guys on that you work so closely with Andy, just to speak towards, and this is for the entire industry, as a matter of fact, so that other manufacturers and even our competitors can hear this and and get their act together, so to speak. But how important is the support that that you get from somebody like Andy?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, if you won't toot your horn, we will. Because if it wasn't for Alchemy, there's a lot of stuff we would not be able to do. I mean, I don't know that we could function daily the way in the capacity that we've been functioning, and the aggressive nature that we reach out for certain projects. There's a lot of stuff we do that's that's the same. It's pretty specific, and it's pretty repeatable from a repair standpoint. But when we started, it really started to grow. One of our goals was to find projects that had not been done before in that exact capacity using polyurethane resins, if not just in our area, maybe all around the country. And last year we were able to hit 2 of those that even kind of had Andy scratching his head. But the beautiful thing was he teamed up with everybody there at Alchemy and said, hey, let's go after it, do it this way. But so not even just the field knowledge, but the chemical knowledge, the business knowledge, the sales knowledge, the entire support that we get from Alchemy. It's one big package, right?
It's
truly a family environment. We feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling anybody and knowing that we're going to be treated with respect, number one, but 2, they're going to handle it with the highest attention to detail that I don't know that we could find anywhere else. And don't want to try, but I don't think we could.
Sure. Yeah, we appreciate the kind feedback. Yeah, it's something, and it's also a common topic here, a common vein in some of the other episodes, but something that we're really pushing for in the industry. A lot of manufacturers in the chemical grouting space are pulling back actually on some of the field support. And you'd be surprised with how many opportunities we kind of fall into, so to speak, because somebody can't get field support, and
I'm sure.
And we on our end, this is actually even towards a little bit of a training effort for some of our other team, perhaps. We're really focusing on that sort of stuff where rather the guys be in the field all day than making 10 20 phone calls. Get out there with one of your key customers and support and work with them. And,
well, and y'all have such a stable of just A-team players from across the entire company, because we deal with billing and with marketing, and we deal with all the different facets within Alchemy, and everybody in there is just top notch. And the company as a whole, y'all are not stagnant. Y'all are aggressive in your approach and trying to be innovative in what you do. And so for us as 2 guys that are the same thing, that's kind of our values. We're aggressive, and we're trying to find new ways of doing things, and we're disruptors, so to speak. And that's kind of how I feel like Alchemy is too. And it's nice to be able to align with you guys and do that, because you get where we're coming from.
For certain. Yeah. A lot of our discussions right now are in that growth phase and how we achieve it. And, it's not easy. There's we have pretty aggressive goals, with our entire team, and a pretty aggressive aspirations of where we want to go. And that's where I mentioned when we first had our conversations about this podcast, I wanted to talk about kind of growing the business and how you guys look at that as well. Are you guys looking, 2-3 years out? I mean, how do you guys kind of look into your future?
Well, we kind of have hopefully, like anybody with a successful company, hopefully you've got visions for the 1 year, the 5 year, and even the 10-year mark. So Morgan was kind of on his own, really doing this thing for 2 years, right at it, I think, with the help of his wonderful wife, with support. And when he and I started, we were friends, and then we started talking about me coming on board. One of our big discussions was where does he see this thing going over the next 5 to 10 years? And so, man, we kind of sat down at that point and lined out a roadmap. And I mean, even down to an organizational chart as if this company were 20 years old, and what all the seats we wanted to see filled, with org chart and job descriptions and everything. And who would sit in those seats. Of course, Morgan and I's names are in 98% of those boxes,
Yeah, it's kind of like we had a conversation yesterday with a guy, and we started the business off like we had 20 people from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to run it that way from day one, and
Right.
It's been easier than probably some people have to experience it. We looked at it as a corporation from day one.
Yeah, planning is key, and
it is, especially for that growth piece. We do want to have and will have multiple locations, and we've kind of picked out our strategic markets that we want to be in, and have put in the groundwork to start making that happen. And the biggest thing when we sat down and started making those I've heard it called a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. When we started making those, I've been told that if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough. And so we made some pretty big ones. And there's a lot of folks maybe around that do some chemical grouting, and they may have some competition for us out there, but we're pretty comfortable with our grit, our determination, our hustle. So we're, not trying to sound cocky in that point, but we know it takes a lot of hard work, and we're willing to put it in to get to that long goal, long-term fix.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think that's worth repeating. I like that. If your goals, what was it? If your goals aren't big, if your goals don't scare you, then they're not big enough.
That's right. Yeah. And then, I in that same vein, it was more in a financial discussion one time I had with someone. They said, if you have a revenue goal for the end of the year, of course, gross revenue is one thing, what you keep's the other. But if you have a sales goal, let's say, that you want to hit, stretch it a little bit, because typically if it's big enough, it ought to spook you. But if it's a little bit bigger, you may hit that first number that you settled on, right? So kind of shoot a little bit higher than what you initially thought, and you'd be surprised at what you can achieve. And I think that's what we've been surprised every year by doing that.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And we did a similar thing with some of our budgetary numbers this year. Obviously things that the guys are comfortable with. I think that in the whole growth phase, that is kind of a tricky thing, especially on the manufacturer side. Obviously, we're a sales I guess essentially we're all sales organizations, right?
Right.
But I guess let me back up to that, and maybe I'll draw some comparisons once I learn more about you guys. But how do you guys go about your sales effort? Do you have guys that are specific to just selling, or are all your guys technicians and salesmen? How does that work?
No, we have it divided up. We're very aggressive on the sales front. We say all the time we're an outbound company, not an inbound company, because one, we are new. A lot of what we're doing, it's not, there's just not a lot of people searching for, because again, we're trying to go after certain projects that may not have been done this way before in our area. So a lot of it is an education piece, right? And y'all certainly understand that as again, y'all are a progressive company. And so you spend a lot of time educating us and our customers on what y'all do. And so we do the same thing. So yeah, we have, from a team standpoint, we do have a business development side, a sales side, and we have a technician side, though everybody is cross-trained. So like when I came on board, I started on the rig with Morgan, and we worked every day together. And then once we had somebody to replace me, I moved on and started handling more of the operations and the sales and financial piece of the company. That's kind of how we work it. If you can train somebody to do what you do, you get to move up. Congratulations.
And if you can't do the work, you can't sell it either.
That's right.
Right. Sure. Yeah. So where I was going with that is, it's when you have these aggressive growth plans, obviously it can be pretty daunting to some of the sales team. They have these big these big goals, and there's a fine line of discouragement, so to speak, with setting a goal too high and pushing for the optimal results. Right.
Right. As long as you're reverse engineering that, though, I was in a different industry before this, and same thing. You had pretty big goals, and so I'm really big on measuring what we're doing at the end of the month, and let's make sure that we're working towards it. But measuring more our production rate, so we know that if we want to close X amount of business, and our average ticket is this, and our close ratio is this, then to get where we want to get to, I need to make X amount of sales. But to get those sales, I've got to make X amount of calls. or get X amount of appointments and get X amount of calls to get those appointments. So when you reverse engineer it back from that and are able to teach the person that number and that way of doing it, it doesn't seem as daunting, you know?
Right. Yeah. Talking through the process and how you got to that number.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, again, it goes back to planning, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Hope is not a plan.
Right. Right. So I'm sure you guys from time to time have those have those whale jobs just that pop up. I mean, I know you guys do. You know, you have these outlier jobs that aren't necessarily, you know, your everyday sort of ticket, you know, that you guys have. How do you guys go about budgeting for those outliers year to year?
Well, so we've just a brief history of my background. I came from the commercial banking industry prior to this, so
Okay.
I dealt with companies on handling that piece of their equation, right? Making sure that they're funded one way or the other to handle those bluebirds that come flying by. And we're a very conservative company from a cash management standpoint. So we keep reserves in place and means necessary to kind of handle that. But you know, when you have those big projects, one, we you know, you got to make sure you talk to your customer about what you expect from them from a deposit standpoint and a commitment. And so part of their skin in the game may be a down payment, right? And to make sure that one, they're in it and they're not going to hang us with a bunch of material. But two, keep that cash flow working. And yeah, that's probably the two biggest ways that we handle that. Just being prepared on our end.
Sure.
And we've done it long enough that you can't always predict when those bigger ones are coming in, but we get a pretty good idea that if it's bigger than X, we need to be looking, right? But up to here, we feel pretty good.
Right. Right. Yeah, we we're always trying to look at how other people do it, you know, do things, of course. You know, we have great, fantastic leadership, you know, at the board level as well. And, you know, just tons of experience, but that's certainly a piece that I think is always a little challenging, more from like not necessarily even like a cash flow scenario, but just a sales goal number, you know, where you have those big projects. Do you work those big projects into your sales forecast from year to year?
No, I guess you could say we have not specifically, but there's always that, I'll call it an outlier carve out maybe, you know, where we fully expect to get it based off of history to get, you know, X amount of those bluebirds that come by. So I wouldn't say that we count on it, Jim, because you can't count your chickens before they hatch, but we certainly know they're coming, right? We know we're good if they don't, but we know it'd be nice if they did.
Sure. And a lot of this leads to engineer outreach, you know, engineer presentations. Do you guys do quite a bit of engineer outreach?
Oh yeah. That's probably where I spend the majority of my time. They've kind of become my little home away from home.
Right.
Yeah, and Andy and I were, matter of fact, talking about this yesterday, that I love engineers because they love to learn. And so they're typically 90% of the ones I deal with are extremely open for us coming in and talking about what we do, because it is exciting stuff, man. It's a neat process. It's neat products, and you're solving some huge issues, especially when you get down to the bottom line of a project and keeping a project moving and not slowing it down. Be able to solve some of that. And those guys and girls love to learn. And so I love talking to them because they ask a lot of questions. And so for us as a company that's going after, again, innovative repairs, different stuff, it certainly helps when we can pick the brain of 100 engineers a year or better and make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing for them to spec a project.
Right. So is that one of the metrics that you look at as far as, you know, you're talking about some of the KPIs of, you know, the amount of calls, average ticket price, close rate? Do you look at engineer presentations?
Yeah. So at the end of the year, really month by month, but especially at the end of the year, we'll break down where our revenue came from, and of course trying to measure what's working and what's not, because that marketing's a whole nother animal, you know, when you're measuring your advertising and different things like that. But yeah, we certainly measure the engineering piece, and those are, you know, they're funny. We kind of look at them, and every area is different, but you have a few that you'll get projects like the day that you do the lunch and learn. Like there happens to be something that's there that they need help with, which is another reason why you should never go past the door and not walk in it and tell them what you do, because you just never know. But so you have some that are right then, and then you have a lot of them that come maybe a year, 2 years down the road, right? They don't need you till they need you. But then when they do, they remember the company that came in and tried to educate them a little bit and stayed in touch with them.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think the end game with the engineer effort really is that 2, 3, I mean, even longer years out sometimes.
Yeah.
I
think it takes a while, just like when, Morgan can probably speak to this, but just like when he started out, he had to figure out what all he could do with polyurethane. And so these engineers are the same way. Like we'll get a lot of calls for the first month or two, just testing, like, hey, is this a good opportunity? Or what do you think about this? And come look at that. And then when you finally get a product that's, or a kind of a process that's ginning, if you will, then they then know what to call you in on, so they're not wasting your time either. But, we've got some that we work with so much now that, and this is on the facilities director side too, they'll call us and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Is there anything you have that would be better? If so, I'd love to hear about it. So they've kind of started calling us pre-job, pre-spec, pre-bid.
Yeah, that's the table you want to be at, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think in the chemical grouting world, our technical director Charlie, who's actually here doing the presentation that I'm at right now, the training that I'm at, one of the things that he says in all of his presentations is probably our biggest competitor is education. And that's why we'd like to do the training schools, the grout labs, even the podcast to a certain extent, is really getting the word out there on a more, mainstream, in a more mainstream manner, so to speak, to the industry, that, hey, with chemical grouting, you can do all these things. I mean, we still have all these, these engineer meetings where you'll see the light bulb moments where they're like, I never even knew this stuff was out there,
Right.
So I think some people have a pretty myopic view of where the industry is, because we all feel like we have to be feeding on each other, when if we would all get out there and educate more properly and do, just put the time in, at the engineer level, I think everybody would benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree. We all want market share, and you don't want to give away all your secrets, but man, we're kind of an open book on what we do for a lot of reasons, mainly because I believe in iron sharpening iron. I also believe that if our competitor doesn't make a good repair, then there's not only a negative connotation with maybe them, but with the chemical grouting industry as a whole. And so I want anybody pumping foam, I don't care who they're buying from, to be doing the right thing and to be doing a solid repair. So yeah, I'm like you, man. I hope everybody's getting educated, and I hope this podcast just blows up so that everybody can hear it.
Yeah, and I agree completely with the. We want our competitors to also be doing good work. If a competitor of ours goes out there and does a job and just completely screws it up, for instance, then that's a tough bell to unring, so to speak, on whoever that client is, whoever the design professionals were. I mean, it's hard to reverse that. So,
right.
We have a couple, even, we just did a very in-depth competitor breakdown, of our leak seal industry as well as our geotech industry, with all key buying factors and performances of all the competitors in both spaces, where we rank them and rate them. And, it was really interesting to kind of see how that lays out, but we don't use that just for our own benefit, but when we're out there, and we're talking to, whether it's a distributor or an engineer, we try to say, if they say I'm dealing with so-and-so or company ABC, we'll give them a pretty honest, assessment of that. Even if it's a competitor, if it's a good one, we say, hey, I was just in a meeting with Steve and Andy not too long ago, where we were talking about a competitor, and obviously I see, I'm the sales manager, right? So I see everything from the sales side. But Steve and Andy both said, yeah, you know what, those guys are great guys, and girls, and they run a good ship, and we're going to find ways to add value in a different way, so to speak. But I thought it was really, really telling, I think it speaks volumes to just have that approach. Would you guys agree?
No. Yeah, I 100% agree. And I can say this, as long as I've been with y'all, I've never heard a negative word, from you guys on competition. And because y'all understand that it's not flattering, not very mature, it doesn't get you anywhere,
Right. Right.
but you want to, and as a heavy sales background that you have, you want to sell against people that are really good, because if not, you're going to get complacent and you will not be on your game like you should be. And so you want somebody that's making you challenge a little bit, challenge yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And, in today's world, with how everything's being exchanged, I mean, you can go online, right? And you can find out anything about any company at any time. You can go through LinkedIn and find out who's doing business with who. I mean, even these podcasts, we throw them out there to the market and people say, oh yeah, Helms Polyfoam, the days of holding stuff so close to your chest are over. You have to, have a confidence in what you do, in my opinion, anyway. A confidence that your team and your company and your product offering is adding value. And the days of just calling people and saying I can give you this for cheaper, I think that's getting less and less effective. With today's connected world.
It's gone.
And people don't like cheap either. That's there's an experience that's related to the construction industry too. It's not just, we're not just selling a product here. You're getting the package deal from the time you make the phone call to us until the time we close the job out and send you a final write-up and review. There's a whole experience involved there. And that's kind of to my point earlier that, that we do have a confidence about us from a business development piece, but really from a production piece. I'm not saying it just because he's sitting here, but I would put Morgan up against anybody in this industry because of the way he cares about the work. And our customers say that time and time again, man, I've seen this guy sit here and fight a job till 10 at night to make it way more perfect than the customer ever thought it should have been, right? Just because his name's on it. It's his name on that trailer. Yep. And we believe in that. That's what we stand behind. So I think that resonates through everything that we do. Hopefully it does. I hope it does.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot as well, that price is what you pay, value is what you get. When you pay to have a service done by Helms, for instance, it's not just that service, you're getting Helms, right? And that's a completely different paradigm, so to speak, than just trying to sell a service. So well, guys, we're closing in on the half-hour mark here, and we've gone a little bit longer on some of the episodes and a little bit shorter, but we're trying to keep it around that mark. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on during our time here?
Jim, I think we've kind of covered everything. We've kind of gone through our history and how we like you guys, of course. Again, we're just grateful to be involved, man. It's kind of a humbling experience.
Well, great. Yeah, we're happy to have you, and this is going to be a long-term process, with the podcast, with the Injection Connection. So, we're also going to get into some case studies down the line as well. So, if you guys have any unique projects or applications that you come across, and it doesn't all have to be what went absolutely right. I think sometimes it's valuable for us to talk about what can go wrong,
Sure.
and what not to do. So.
Look, hey, we even do that in our engineering talks. I've got several projects on there to exploit the wrongs.
Yep. Yeah, that's a piece of feedback that comes from our training courses a lot, that we do a questionnaire at the end, and it's been a repetitive thing where people say, tell us what can go wrong as well. So I think you guys mentioned you'll be at the training course next week, so we'll be touching on that, of course.
Yeah, great.
But no, so the point of that, though, guys, is keep this podcast in mind, and if there's something you think is kind of a unique talking point, let me know, and we'll get it scheduled and let the industry know about it.
Hey, absolutely.
Sure will. Hey, we appreciate you, Jim.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks a lot for your time, and we'll see you soon.
All right, let's do it again.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.